Hello and welcome back to the Cars.co.za YouTube channel. My name's Chira Siena and this is the second episode in our Buyer's Guide series, where we aim to tell you everything you need to know about specific cars on the used car market. In the first episode, we covered the Volkswagen Tiguan, but today we will be covering the first generation Toyota Fortuner, a hugely popular SUV on South African roads and a vehicle which offers hundreds of options on our site. The second gen is also a massive winner in our Cars.co.za Consumer Awards, which are back this year. So, are you ready? Let's get into it. Cars.co.za. Right, so are you in the market for a first generation Toyota Fortuner? In this video, we're going to take you through everything you need to know, from common problems to what you should look out for when shopping for a used version of this popular Hilux-based SUV. Now, late in 2004, Toyota had the idea of building a 7-seater SUV based on the popular Hilux Bakkie. The thinking was to build a series of closely related models for emerging markets in those emerging markets rather than in Japan. South Africa, of course, was one of those production sites alongside Thailand, Indonesia, and Argentina. The Fortuner family SUV was born based on the tough and tested underpinnings of the 7th generation Hilux, but gaining plenty more in the comfort department too, in part thanks to its coil-sprung rear end. With hindsight, the move may have seemed like an absolute no-brainer, particularly considering Isuzu's early success with the KB-based Frontier. But even the Japanese firm's local division was initially surprised by just how favorably local buyers received the Fortuner. Positioned just above the RAV4 but below the Land Cruiser Prado, the 3-row Fortuner quickly became South Africa's best-selling SUV. The formula is one that continues to pay dividends to this day, with the second generation Fortuner still selling up a storm in South Africa. So, as of October 2023, what should you look to pay for a used Fortuner? As always, it's worth asking the seller of any Fortuner you're interested in to provide proof of the vehicle's service history. Since this Bakkie-based SUV was offered with a 3-year, 100,000 kilometer warranty and a 5-year, 90,000 kilometer service plan, even the final few units from this generation would no longer enjoy any manufacturer cover, though the original buyer had the option to extend the service plan to 7 years or 200,000 kilometers. Also note the turbo diesel models had a service interval of 10,000 kilometers, while the petrol V6's interval was 15,000. Of the used first generation Fortuner stock on Cars.co.za at the time of recording, diesel was easily the most popular fuel type, accounting for 88% of all listings. Interestingly, the ratio between manual and automatic transmissions was near equal at 49 to 51%, while 4x2 configurations made up 69% of all stock. A considerable 49% of vehicles listed had more than 200,000 kilometers on the clock, while we found 5 examples that had done in excess of 400,000 kilometers. Let's look at the category below 200,000 Rand. Now, predictably, the overwhelming majority of vehicles listed below this price point were early model year examples, many sporting large numbers on their odometers. There were also a couple of special edition units, the Heritage and Epic editions, at this price point. Let's look at 200,000 to 300,000 Rand. This was the most densely populated pricing bracket at the time of recording, containing 60% of all listings. We found a number of 2014 and 2015 vehicles that were showing under 100,000 kilometers, most of them in the raised body, that is the 4x2 guys, and combining the 3-liter D4D power plant with an automatic transmission. It's in this bracket that most buyers today would probably be shopping. Let's look from 300,000 to 350,000. Despite this higher and narrower price band, the 4x2 configuration still dominated, as did the later model years and the 1KD engine. There were also a number of very low mileage examples on offer. If you're considering paying a premium for a low mileage example, be sure to closely inspect the vehicle to determine whether the general level of wear and tear matches the claimed mileage. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Now let's look at 350,000 Rand and up. Illustrating that 3-litre D4D models tend to hold their value far better than the V6 petrol units, this final pricing segment contained only examples with the diesel engine. Here we also noticed a few lightly modified Fortuners bearing such items as snorkels and aftermarket alloys. Unless you're a seasoned overlander able to identify the quality of such components, we'd suggest avoiding models that are no longer stock standard. Right, with all of that out of the way, let's look at the Fortuner's strengths. Thanks to its bucky chassis, its engine and its gearbox, and heavy-duty suspension system, the original Fortuner was as rugged as a family SUV could get. Owing to the widespread use of robust materials in the cabin, the sturdy interior proved impressively durable as well. The tried and tested powertrains too meant that the Fortuner quickly built a strong reputation for reliability. The 3-litre D4D engine was especially highly regarded, with many examples racking up huge mileage with very few problems at all, while being properly maintained, of course. This power plant also handled 500 ppm sulfur content diesel, a bit better than Toyota's more modern GD6 engines that succeeded it. In many ways, the first generation Fortuner was quite simply the right vehicle for thousands of South African families at the right price, offering the robustness of the Hilux but with added comfort in the larger cabin. There was one black mark in the Fortuner's practicality offering: the setup of that final row of seats. Hinged to the luggage compartment side walls, they ate into the carrying capacity even when stowed away. They had a tendency to rattle about and couldn't be easily removed either. Some people love the setup and some people hate it. It's like the Bovril of car seats. A Toyota SA Motors executive once described the Fortuner as the consummate all-rounder. There's plenty of truth in that statement, as the bucky-based SUV was as capable tackling the school run in relative comfort as it was negotiating rocky passes or clawing its way up a Namibian sand dune. Now, as you might expect, the 4x4 derivatives were particularly impressive off the beaten path, as they were offered as standard with full-time four-wheel drive, with low range and a locking central Torsen limited slip differential. Rear-driven variants, meanwhile, came equipped with a rear differential lock. And now onto, importantly, some of the Fortuner's weaknesses and common problems. I know that's why you're all here. Early in the Fortuner's life, there were a number of reports of the SUV exhibiting unstable handling and sometimes even rolling over on gravel. After a couple of years, a local online forum was awash with irate Fortuner owners who even collectively threatened to take Toyota to court. Eventually in 2009, the Japanese firm's local division acknowledged the existence of a perceived problem and opted to fit stability control to all new Fortuners along with a larger tire configuration. Some owners, though, also opted to upgrade the suspension with aftermarket components. A number of Fortuner and Hilux owners reported instances of the fuel gauge sticking at around a quarter of a tank. The cluster would furthermore show an inaccurate distance to empty reading and ultimately leave the unsuspecting driver to run out of fuel. The fuel light would also fail to illuminate. This prompted Toyota SA Motors to release a technical bulletin to its dealer network, detailing how to repair potentially faulty meters. Though it's not clear whether this fault was limited to a particular production period, it's worth noting most of the complaints that we've seen related to 2012 models. Though the 3-litre D4D engine was a largely reliable motor, there were a few known issues specifically relating to the 1KD FTV's injectors. The copper injector seats used by early models, for instance, were prone to failure, so look out for white smoke and listen for a distinctive rattling noise when the engine is still cold. While the injectors themselves were likewise sometimes a bit troublesome, left unchecked, such issues could lead to clogged up oil pickups and even cracked pistons. Other potential issues to look out for include blocked exhaust gas recirculate valves, resulting in dulled performance and leaking water pumps, while it's also worth noting certain versions of the Fortuner were subject to a 2014 recall in South Africa for a potentially faulty spiral cable indicated by a dashboard warning light that could prevent the driver's airbag from deploying in a crash. Finally, keep in mind the 1kD FTV and 2kD FTV turbo diesel engines both use a timing belt that requires replacement every 150,000 kilometers. Now let's take a look at the Toyota Fortuner model lineup for the first generation. It effectively succeeded the Condor, and the original Fortuner was revealed in December 2004 in Thailand. Production officially commenced at Toyota's Prospecton facility in KwaZulu-Natal in February 2006, with local sales kicking off the following month. Now, interestingly, the range available did not offer any trim levels to choose from, with each derivative in the initial lineup instead differentiated by its combination of engine, namely the 3-litre D4D or the 4-litre V6 petrol, and by transmission, namely the 5-speed manual or 5-speed automatic, and then the driven wheels, either 4x2 or 4x4. At launch, 5 variants were available, and we'll put the list on the screen for you now. So there was the 3-litre D4D, the 3-litre D4D 4x4, the 4-litre V6 4x2, the 4-litre V6 4x4, and lastly the 4-litre V6 4x4 automatic. Over the next decade, the AN50 or AN60 generation Fortuner benefited from a handful of upgrades. Such was its popularity, however, that Toyota was never forced to make any sweeping changes, just occasionally tweaking the SUV to keep it in line with local tastes and expectations. In 2009, for instance, the Fortuner's cabin gained ergonomic updates, such as new air conditioning controls linked to roof-mounted vents for the 2 rear rows of seats, while the exterior featured redesigned headlights and taillights, as well as a new grille and larger wheels, which went from 16 to 17 inches. Though the engines were unchanged, the rear-driven 3-litre D4D variant gained the option of a 4-speed automatic transmission. Electronic stability control was also introduced at this point, while the fuel tank size increased from 65 litres to a more useful 80. Epic Special Edition versions of the V6 model were also offered. 2 years later, in 2011, a few more changes were implemented, including the fitment of a new chrome-heavy grille, redesigned bumpers front and rear, and chunkier fenders. The Heritage Edition models then briefly appeared in the range. Perhaps more significant, though, was the local introduction of a fresh base engine in the form of a 2.5-litre D4D, which offered peak outputs of 106 kilowatts and 343 newton meters. Though this power plant was initially available only with a manual gearbox, Toyota added a 4-speed automatic option late in 2012. Early in the second half of 2013, the aptly named Limited Edition hit the local market, with production running from July until September of that year. The package was available on all 3-litre D4D turbo diesel and 4-litre V6 petrol derivatives, and comprised items such as a branded stainless steel nudge bar, stainless steel side steps, chrome side mirror caps, a rear sill protector, grey 17-inch alloys, a matte black tow bar, a branded carpet set, and new rear badging. Despite local buyers bemoaning the Fortuner's standard interior color, which over much of its life ranged from an easy-to-stain light beige color to something a few shades closer to brownish grey, it was only deep in 2013 that Toyota finally switched to a black dashboard and upholstery, which was fabric in the case of the 2.5 and leather for the 3-litre and 4-litre petrol derivatives. At the same time, the larger engine models scored an all-new multimedia system, complete with a bigger display, while 2.5 models were also upgraded to a revised infotainment system with Bluetooth. Very fancy. Towards the end of 2014, the Bakkie-based SUV received yet more tweaks, including head and tail lights, now with black detailing, teardrop-shaped front fog light bezels, and chrome side mirror caps. Half of all 3-litre and 4-litre units produced for 2 months were again handed the Epic treatment, this time comprising a branded chrome nudge bar, dark grey 17-inch alloy wheels, a rear sill protector, a tow bar, and Epic badging. Another limited edition version of the 3-litre made a brief appearance in 2015 around the time of the all-new model's reveal on the global stage. Local production of the original Fortuner ended in early 2016, with the second generation model officially hitting the market shortly thereafter. So which would be our pick of the range? Well, as always, the buyer's budget and intended usage play a large role in answering this question. If you have intentions of heading far from the safety of tarmac, for instance, you'd obviously be better served shelling out for a 4x4 model. That said, of the 3 available engine options, we'd argue the 3-litre D4D, which is handily also the most common power plant, offers the best mix of performance and economy, with the 4-speed automatic likely to suit more buyers than the 5-speed manual gearbox. The market seems to agree, as 3-litre D4D models are generally priced a little higher than their siblings. Stick to the later models from November 2013 and up, and you'll score a more modern infotainment system, as well as the far more practical and visually pleasing black interior. Though the 2.5-litre D4D boasts the same peak torque figure as the larger 3-litre motor, it's worth noting models equipped with the smaller 2.5 motor had a little less standard equipment. For example, it had cloth seats instead of leather, as well as safety kit, and lacking the additional airbags fitted to the larger engine models. The 4-litre V6 has all the kit you could want, but it's likely too thirsty for most modern tastes. Braked towing capacities vary between derivatives, depending on the combination of engine, transmission, and driven wheels, with the highest rating being just over 2 tons, courtesy of the 3-litre D4D 4x4 powertrain. So, in summary, the original Fortuner was a resounding success for Toyota, outselling its rivals by a massive margin month after month for 10 years. That means there are still loads of options on the used car market, despite the fact that production ended as long ago as 2016. Of course, there's also still quite some demand, with the 3-litre D4D models showing particularly strong residual values. As always, there are a few compelling alternatives to consider in this space, such as the 2nd generation Mitsubishi Pajero Sport and the 3rd generation Nissan Pathfinder. The Chevrolet Trailblazer is also worth a look, while it also be tempting to stretch to its sibling in the form of the later model Isuzu MU-X. Now that nameplate only arrived in South Africa in 2018, and that's a good option if you can find one. Now we would suggest steering clear of the original Ford Everest, as the 1st gen model lagged behind the Fortuner in most departments, though an early model year 2nd gen Everest might be worth a shout. Still, as mentioned above, none of these likewise Bucky-based alternatives sold in numbers anywhere near those of the Fortuner, which means they're far more difficult to come by today. I hope you found this video useful. We'd love to hear what you think in the comments below if you're busy shopping for a Toyota Fortuner. And if you missed our first buyer's guide, the link will be in the description below to the Volkswagen Tiguan. If you're new to the Cars.co.za YouTube channel, we have over 700 videos on the site. If you're looking for a review of a car, you'll probably find it in our back catalog. Thanks very much for watching. I'm Chiro de Siena, and I'll catch you on the next one. All right, be safe, subscribe. Also be safe, also subscribe, and then be safe. Or the other way around. I'm easy.
Cars.co.za.
No matter how big or small your car is, you can still save $420 per month. Budget, the official insurer of good South Africans.
Are you busy trying to decide between 2 cars, 3 cars, 4 cars, 5 cars, 6 cars, and getting absolutely lost in all of the specs and all of the different pricing? Well, we have an excellent compare tool on our main website and in our app for you to use. It's very detailed, it's very slick and quick and efficient, and I highly recommend it. I use it all the time when I'm doing research for our car shoots. So check it out. We'll put the link in the description below and tell us what you think. Tell us if it helped you out.